project. Welcome back, everyone. I would hope to begin in a couple of minutes. We're just waiting on a few more parties so that we have quorum. Again, if you could encourage any colleagues that might be in the corridors to come in so that we are quorate, that would be helpful. We'll start in a couple of minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone.
Добро пожаловать. Приятно всех вас видеть снова в зале. Надеюсь, что мы сможем пройти по всем документам. И
We have projected a list of documents on the screen, and what I propose to do is work our way through as many of these as we can to seek your approval and recommendations for approval by the COP. Before we go into that, I'd like to ask the Secretariat for some announcements, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have a number of new documents that are either on the website in English only or in all three languages. We will obviously not be discussing these documents. They've only been up for a few minutes, and certainly if they're only in English, we can't discuss them. But some of the English only are significant documents, so if people want to get a head start, that might be useful. CRP 17 Rev 1 on the Global Biodiversity Framework is on the website in English, as is CRP 18 Rev 1 on synergies and partnerships. We also have CRP 28.4.1 on flyways in all languages, 28.4.2 on the Initiative for a Central Asian Flyway in all languages, 29.3, the Central Asian Mammals Initiative in all languages, 30.1.1 Rev 1 on priorities for addressing illegal and unsustainable taking of migratory species is in English only at the moment. And yeah, that's it for now. But obviously we'll be working through the night to get these in all remaining documents online in all three languages. The daily report for day 4 is also online now. And I will note that the budget document has been submitted for translation. Obviously that's going to, well, I hope likely get a bit of priority so that it's up sooner for all of us to review. And then just a quick note, if documents that we are discussing here are revised while we're discussing them, the Secretariat is turning those into a subsequent revision so that by plenary we're seeing the absolute final text. So you may see revved documents on the in-session document part of the website, and that's what some of those revs refer to, such as CRP 20 Rev 1. We made some minor amendments on the floor, and those are now reflected in a final CRP that we will formally adopt tomorrow in plenary. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat, for that. Can I thank the appointed councillor dealing with the 3 documents that we referred to the cross-cutting working group earlier. Thank you for progress on that. Can we then turn our attention to the list of CRPs, and if we could turn to CRP 14.2 on the new strategic plan for migratory species. It includes a new resolution and strategic plan for 24 to 32, as well as new draft decisions. It also repeals Resolution 11.2, Rev COP12, Strategic Plan for Migratory Species 2015 to 23. In addition, document 14.2 asks us to consider deleting decisions 13.5. Any comments, please? If I open the floor. Sorry, European Union, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. On the agenda item on strategic plan, we're quite happy with the text. That we have 3 things that we would like to come back on. The first one is a minor issue for clarity. It is in the 5th preamble. In our original comments, we had asked to put a footnote related to a reference of areas beyond jurisdiction This was moved from target 2.2 to the preambular, and it only gives further information on the BBNJ. Then we have some concerns about the 6th preambular, which is basically introducing a new concept of countries into the CMS by adding a reference to developing countries. The text in itself is not that problematic, but we are worried about introducing a new category of parties here, which could set a precedent for a whole bunch of discussions. So we would prefer to not include this reference to the CMS in this preambular. So we would prefer to delete this preambular text. And then our third comment would be in target 5.3. There is a reference to IPLCs in the target itself. And of course, we don't have a problem with recognizing the value of the traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples and local communities. However, we think that's not necessarily target language. We would prefer to put it in the explanation that comes under it, so that we can maybe move it to the end of the last sentence after impact, and then use this sentence. So it would basically be, at the end of that paragraph, taking into account traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples and local communities. So we're trying to keep the idea, we just don't think it's target language. Thank you so much.
Thank you, European Union. I'll just check if Secretariat got that change. Thank you, EU. Again, for clarity on your last suggested change, I'm assuming you want to strike the words taking into account traditional knowledge of indigenous people and local communities from the section in bold, and then simply replace that back down at the bottom of the paragraph. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yes, Brazil, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make a brief comment or reaction to the comment made by the EU with regards the reference to developing countries on the strategic plan, especially because it was an idea that we proposed on the outset, and we discussed it a lot, this reference in the working group on cross-cutting issues. I understand, I think that in my first statement, my statement in this committee, when this document was opened, I explained my reasoning. I understand that we are discussing a strategy to the convention for the next years, and it would be important to acknowledge the specific circumstances of developing countries, in particular our challenges in regards to the implementation and the lack of means of implementation. I don't think I can agree with the idea that we're introducing a new category of parties. Parties have the same, actually not the same rights, because there is one party specifically that has 27 votes, even not being present all the delegations. But in general, parties are equal here. But developing countries is a concept that's used and acknowledged in all multilateral agreements, almost all perhaps, multilateral agreements, environmental multilateral agreements, the Rio Declaration, the Rio Principles, the CVD, and I don't understand why we shouldn't refer to so consolidated an idea or a concept we've been discussing the many ways that this convention should cooperate, collaborate, look for synergies with other multilateral environmental agreements, but are we going to look for synergies, cooperation, collaboration, telling them that we do not recognize that the world has developed and developing countries? Another thing is that we are always introducing new ideas, new concepts. And I'm not saying that developing country is a new concept, but we are discussing right now decision in a document on deep sea bed mining. I don't think that this term also belongs originally to this convention. So I would be careful with this idea that we should not recur to concepts, ideas that are not placed in the original text of the convention. And if we look, I don't have time, I didn't have time to look at the decisions and recommendations already approved under this convention. I might suspect that it may have been adopted, that the wording developing countries may have been adopted in one or other decision or resolution, but I couldn't check it. But the website of the convention incorporates in many reference to developing countries. I'm looking here at the website of the CMS. When it refers to capacity building, it makes reference of the inadequate capacity in developing countries and many others. So when we talk about here CMS Small Grants Program, we also refer to the implementation in developing countries. So I really don't see any problem here to refer, to have this specific reference. I understand that the European Union has programs to assist developing countries in the implementation of multilateral environmental agreements. It would be good for the European Union to have this idea also recognized and knowledge here. So I sincerely would prefer that we keep the wording that we reached at the working group. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil, for that. I am very aware that the wording on the document has come from the working group with the text in the 6th preambular paragraph from them. And I wonder if the chair of the working group would like to make any comment on the logic of including the sentence. New Zealand, please.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, we did have a long discussion about this at the working group. Initially, Brazil was very keen to have this concept contained in one of the targets of the strategy itself under Goal 4. And there were reservations about doing that amongst the group. And so we concluded that a compromise, and it was very much a compromise for all of us, was to add a preambular paragraph. And we thought, well, that does sort of set out a very important point for some countries, and for others who weren't so supportive of it, it was just in a preambular paragraph. So it was very much a compromise that we came to. Thank you.
Thank you, New Zealand. European Union, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And we very much appreciate the work that was done in the working group and the hard work trying to compromise on this. However, this is quite an important issue that has created a lot of division among parties in other conventions because of terminology. And even though I agree with Brazil that, of course, the world is changing, of course, there are developing and developed countries, but there's also other categories, and there is no universal definition that exists in the different MEAs on this. So we are not so much against the fact that certain countries, range states, party and non-party range states, need support to implement the initiatives or the frameworks or the implementation of the convention. We do not think that is linked to the term developing countries. And I believe that the European Union has a problem with introducing this concept here, but I do not think that it is because the European Union has not been helping the implementation of this convention. So I really sincerely do not believe that that is an argument that can be used to undermine our argumentation. The argumentation is very straightforward. This is not terminology that exists here, and we know that this terminology is creating a lot of problems in other MEAs, which we would really like to keep out of this convention, where actually the focus is on having parties working with each other and with stakeholders, rather than trying to say, well, who has to receive and who has to give? And I think that the approach in this convention has been much more constructive and much more productive than having this sterile discussion. So we would really like to try the best we can to keep that discussion out of this convention. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, EU, for that. Of course, our role here is to solve the...
Да, мы понимаем, что основная цель – это решить проблемы по данной конвенции и другим конвенциям, и мы подождем, есть ли комментарии.
I wonder if we could move to the EU suggested changes to Target 5.3 and the wording there, if there are any comments on that aspect, and if not, we'll consolidate around that move of text. But can I take any more particular comments on Target 5.3 and the suggested changes from the EU? Again, the proposal was to move the text from the bold section taking into account traditional knowledge of Indigenous people and local communities to the end of that full paragraph. So it retains the sentiment, it simply moves it in terms of location. Could we take that as a reasonable amendment? And then perhaps I could ask the EU to specify the footnote that you want added to the document.
Yes, thank you. So the footnote would come in, I believe, what was the 5th preambular paragraph, which refers to BBNG, the law of the sea and BBNG. Yeah.
Thank you.
So the paragraph is about UNCLOS, and the footnote would add something on the BBNG. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. Just for clarity, you've already sent that to the Secretariat, I believe. Yeah, okay. If you have the footnote available, it would be helpful to read it out so we can incorporate it in now. Yes, European Union.
Yeah, apologies. If you give us a second, we'll pull it up. Thank you. We assumed Secretariat already. Thank you.
Yes, European Union, please.
Yes, thank you. As said, it's just a specification on the BBNJ, so it would read, agreement under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. EU will add that footnote. Could I ask for any other interventions in relation to the preambular paragraph 6, which is currently drafted to include, in particular, developing countries? Brazil, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was looking, I did a quick research here using this wonderful tool called Google, and I know that the resolution, CMS resolution 10.25, especially has a preambular paragraph that reads like that: conscious that these resourcing limitations have a proportionally greater constraining effect in developing countries, while at the same time such countries are hosts of some of the world's richest and most vulnerable biodiversity, including migratory species. So perhaps this example, perhaps I might suspect that there are others, can make the European Union feel more comfortable. This convention has already recognized that developing countries exist and that they have different and bigger challenges with the reference of the implementation of the convention. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brazil. I think that's an important precedent in that document. I wonder if there are any other comments on this particular issue at this point. Let me try one thing. I mean, I think the precedent is in other already agreed documents. The document we have before us, document 14.2, has come back from the working group. It appears to have come back by consensus. So I'm minded on preambular paragraph 6 to retain the existing and what I believed was text by consensus. But European Union?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Brazil for picking that up. I would first like to just remind you that, or remind the room that we have consistently raised the fact that we had a problem with this text, so we never agreed to the compromise. We would bring it back, and we were told that if there was still a problem with it, we could raise it in the COW, which we are doing. So I don't believe that this is compromise. But I mean, we would be willing to look together with Brazil to see if there's any kind of wording that would be acceptable, if you would give us some more time to look at this. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. That's very helpful, and that's what I was going to suggest, actually, rather than push ahead. I think if we can take some time for the European Union and Brazil to consult, and if you could report back to this session or the next session on a consensus way forward, that would be very helpful. Thank you for that. We will leave the strategic plan for the moment and hope we will get resolution to that. If we could move on then to document 23 on national reports. During our discussion this morning, the United Kingdom and New Zealand made some proposed revisions to the resolution 12.5 and draft decisions. Ask the Secretariat now, who worked with the two delegations, to confirm their exact proposals. Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, we had New Zealand propose to delete certain paragraphs from the preamble, and I can confirm that it's only preambular paragraphs 8, 9, and 10 that New Zealand seeks to delete. Then with respect to the decisions, I'm going to read out the proposed text from the United Kingdom and New Zealand, two separate revisions, very slowly so that we can enter it into the record, and hopefully that will be sufficient for everybody to contemplate and then allow a recommendation to adopt. So first, with respect to the direction to the standing committee proposed by the United Kingdom, a new paragraph 14AA B. The provision would read, the standing committee is requested to review the reporting requirements under the resolutions adopted by the Conference of the Parties and advise the 15th meeting of the Conference of the Parties on a strategic way forward. The amendment proposed by New Zealand to decision 14.BB is inserted at the very end of the sentence after the phrase Conference of the Parties. The phrase is to align with the goals and targets of the strategic plan for migratory species 2023-2032. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. I'll open the floor for any comments on document 23 on these specific changes. New Zealand, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I've just been listening to the UK suggestion. Unfortunately, I was in a working group at the time. And I think it is a very good suggestion. I just wonder if we should align the timing of that work with the review and adoption of the new reporting format, which the Standing Committee has been tasked to do in the intersessional period, so that we can have the new format in time for COP15. And it would be useful also to have the work done that the UK has suggested as part of that same piece of work potentially, so that it can be incorporated into the national reporting format potentially, and we can use it for reporting for COP15. Thank you. So there's some quite useful language in the strategic plan resolution I think you could draw from, or the decision from the national reports. I haven't got them in front of me, but yeah, there's language there that you can draw from. Thanks.
Thank you, New Zealand. Argentina, please.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to indicate that Argentina aligns and supports the position of Brazil in terms of incorporating the reference to developing countries. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Argentina. That was on the previous item. I wonder if you could just repeat your intervention, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. We just wanted to say that we support and align ourselves with that which was indicated by the delegation of Brazil, in that Brazil also supports the inclusion of the paragraph linked to developing countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Argentina. If I could take us then back to document 23 and open the floor for comments. I wonder if I could ask New Zealand if you wanted to make any particular suggestions on language for this document, or whether you think that we have language, as you expressed it, in other resolutions that we can draw from in terms of a way forward. New Zealand, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm just skimming through the decision on the strategic plan, where I vaguely recall we had something similar. Sorry, I won't be a minute. It's a big document to scroll through. I'm sorry, I can't find the paragraph I'm looking for.
New Zealand, could I suggest that we go on and deal with the next item, which is on freshwater fish and the European eel, and then we'll come back to check with you in terms of language. That may give you a few more minutes to look through the document. Would that be an acceptable way? Yeah, thank you very much. We'll come back to this document in hopefully a few minutes and try and resolve the text. Can we then move on to document 27.7.2 Rev 1, which includes new decisions for our consideration. Document 27.7.2 Rev 1 also asks us to consider deleting decisions 13.76 and 13.79. Could I open the floor for any comments then, please? If Earth Island Institute, please.
Yes, sorry. Oh, this is on the freshwater fish. I'm sorry, I'm not at Earthwater Institute. It's just that my microphone was broken. Thank you, Chair. On behalf of Coalition Clean Baltic.
Sorry to interrupt. Could you introduce who you are then?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Sorry. I am presenting on behalf of the Fisheries Secretariat Coalition Clean Baltic and the members of the Informal Eel Alliance. I would like to thank the Secretariat for their work on this document and express our strong support for the development of the plan for the critically endangered European eel. We look forward to collaborating with the Secretariat and the range states on this urgent topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. If there are no other requests for the floor, can we recommend this paper for adoption? That's paper 27.7.2 Rev 1 and the acceptance of deletion of decisions 13.76 through to 13.79. We can indeed. Thank you very much. Let's move on then to consider CRP 28.1 on the prevention of illegal killing, taking and trade in migratory birds. It includes draft amendments to Resolution 11.16, Rev COP14 and draft decisions. Also document 28.1 Rev 1 asks us to consider deletion of decisions 13.27 to 13.33. Can I open the floor for any comments, please? Saudi Arabia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Saudi Arabia will have a minor amendment to the footnote on the agenda item 28.1, as we already agreed in the working group for this amendment, which is adding the Southwest Asia region in the footnote. Therefore, we would like to add the Southwest region to the footnote on the page 4 of the document, to be read like this. There are regional differences in the agreed terminology in English for the problem of illegal removal of birds from the wild in Europe and in the Mediterranean. The agreed terms is illegal killing and taking, to avoid confusion with the legitimate hunting practices, whereas in Asia, Australia region and Asia, Australia and Southwest region, the agreed term is illegal hunting and taking due to the cultural sensitivities. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Saudi Arabia. Could I ask if there are any further comments on this paper? The proposal then is on the footnote on page 4 to insert Southwest Asia region after Australasia. With that very small clarification on the footnote, can I ask that we recommend this for adoption, please? And indeed we can. Thank you very much. We then move to CRP 28.3 on the prevention of poisoning of migratory birds. It includes draft amendments to resolutions 11.15, Rev COP14, and draft decisions. Also, document 28.3 asks us to consider deletion of decisions 13.39 and 13.40. Could I open the floor for any comments, please? European Union, please.
Yes, thank you. Dear Chair, the European Union and its member states would like to remove the paragraph on the 3rd page, which reads as follows. Welcoming the opinion adopted in 2021 by the European Chemicals Agency to restrict lead in outdoor shooting and fishing in the European Union. This was already agreed in the avian working group and is also included in the paragraph below.
Thank you, EU. It looks like a very straightforward editorial deletion. Thank you. Can I then seek clarification that we agree to the deletion of the paragraph on page 3 that begins welcoming the adoption of an EU-wide ban, etc., and on the basis that the sentiment is covered in the following paragraph? With that, can we recommend for adoption, please? And within that, we are accepting decisions and deletion of decisions 13.39 and 13.40. We can indeed. Thank you very much. Let's turn then to CRP 28.7 on the Saker-Falcon Global Action Plan. A working group has been working on the way forward on this document, and it would be helpful to hear from that working group in terms of how they are progressing, please. Appointed Councillor for Birds.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we met earlier this morning and agreed some revised text.
Thank you. I believe that will come out as a revision document and we'll take it tomorrow morning. Secretariat. Thank you, Secretariat. They've informed me the REV has been very recently posted in 3 languages, so it is available now. If people could consider that as soon as you can, please, that would be very helpful. Thank you to the appointed councillor for the update. Let's turn then to CRP 30.2.1.1 on ecological connectivity, the policy aspects. It includes consolidated and new draft decisions. Document 30.2.1.1 also recommends the deletion of decisions 13.113 through to 13.115. Again, can I open the floor for any comments? Thank you. This, as I've said, contains a consolidated resolution. I'll go to European Union and then United Kingdom, then Biodiversity Research Conservation Centre. European Union.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair, and I'm talking on behalf of the European Union and its 27 member states. We have a small editorial comment on this first page in the paragraph starting with bearing in mind. In the second line, we would like to add a comma after species and delete the word and in front of habitat connection without hindrance so that the paragraphs would read better. So that's the first comment we have on this document, and then the second comment we have on this document is page 5 in the section, in paragraph 1 that urges parties, little v, so little 5. In the second line of that subparagraph, we would like to delete the word effective. Because assessing the effectiveness of effective management, is a bit redundant. And anyways, we need to assess all the management, not only the effective management. So we would like to delete that word from that subparagraph. And that's it for the EU. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, EU. Could I go to the United Kingdom, please?
Thank you, Chair. We thank the Secretariat for this CRP and for incorporating the UK's proposed amendments made earlier in the week in the CRP. I was just going to make a comment also about the third preambular paragraph, but we're content with that now, following so we support the EU's proposed amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, UK. Biodiversity Research in Switzerland, please, and then Biodiversity Research. Switzerland.
Thank you, Chair. I'm always also wanting to make a comment on paragraph 3. I can align with the EU comment and the UK, but I'd just like to have this room or the CMS family to recognize that we somehow changed the definition of connectivity from 2 elements to 3 elements. We are now talking about not only the unimpeded movement of species and the flow of natural processes, but also from habitat connection without any hindrance. I mean, I can align with that, it's good, but just let's notice that we changed the definition. Thank you.
Thank you, Switzerland. And then finally on this, Biodiversity Research and Conservation Centre, please.
Hello, I really didn't understand why didn't you give me a word regarding Falcon? So I would like to make some comments to all the panel, if it is possible, please. First of all, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues. I represent BRCC, an NGO from Kazakhstan, and I would like to thank once again the government of Uzbekistan and the CMS Secretariat for organizing such a significant event within COP14. Unfortunately, we joined the Falcon Task Force discussion too late, so we were not able to prepare elaborated proposals for the drafting itself. But I would like to voice a general comment. According to the latest studies, the population of Falcon in Kazakhstan continues to decline, and its decline, according to some data, has reached more than 90%. At the same time, organized attempts to export the Falcon are detected annually, which indicates the work of organized criminal groups working on behalf of international buyers. When we talk about the harvesting of Mongolia Falcon, I think we should realize that Mongolia has borders with such countries as Russia, China, and other large countries, and from the borders of Kazakhstan to the borders of Mongolia is only about 40 kilometers. I would note that the Falcon is a very dynamic species. It can fly 100 or more kilometers a day. The Falcon can have nesting in one place and summering in several hundred kilometers away from this place, and wintering in thousands of kilometers from the nesting territory. That is, Falcon is a migratory species, and birds from Russia and Kazakhstan and China can easily be found in Mongolia and vice versa. As far as I know, CMS pay a lot of attention to ecological connectivity and also to transboundary issues. We have talked a lot about this in the past days. I'm sure that we shouldn't only talk about it, but also to do it. So I have a big request to all related parties and decision makers. When we plan to harvest Seka falcon in a particular country, in particular boundaries, please remember that nature knows no borders, and Seka falcon knows no borders. Let's respect the basic principles of CMS. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I'm very aware that the working group has deliberated excuse me, on the issue, and we will come back to the issue again tomorrow when we have the revised paper from the working group. So please do stay and contribute at that point as well. Thank you very much. Can I take us back then to the paper on ecological connectivity and check if there are any other comments that people would like to make at this point? I've got Centre for Large Landscape Conservation very briefly, please.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Center for Large Landscape Conservation, thanks to the EU and UK and Swiss delegations for bringing attention to paragraph 3. Just for the sake of consistency and clarity, I just want to make sure that the paragraph reads, bearing in mind that ecological connectivity is the unimpeded movement of species, comma, habitat, connection without hindrance, and the flow of natural processes that sustain life on Earth, making sure that that S on the end of habitats is not included.
Thank you very much for that. If I see no more interventions on this, let me try and summarize where I think we are text-wise at the moment. I've got 3 potential small changes to this, which is in the first one is in the 3rd preambular paragraph, which would in the second line read then movements of species, delete the and insert a comma, habitats without an S, so read habitat connection without hindrance and read on. And then on page 5, on little Roman V at the top, we would delete the first word on the second line, effective. Just before I move on this, could I check with the EU that the deletion of the S is acceptable? Thank you. European Union?
Yes, thank you very much. And we understand the concern here. But in order to keep the notion we want to have in here, we would then prefer to have connection between habitat to make the notion clear. And without hindrance afterwards. And we keep the S, then the connection between habitats. I hope that's clear.
I wonder if you could just read the line again so that we get it. Thank you. EU, please. If it helps, the Secretariat could probably read the line if that's helpful. Secretariat?
Assuming I heard you correctly, the paragraph would read, bearing in mind that ecological connectivity, hereafter connectivity, is the unimpeded movement of species, comma, connection of habitats without hindrance, and the flow of natural processes that sustain life on Earth.
European Union?
Yes, thank you. As long as the S after at the end of habitats is there, it's fine with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. With these small changes, could I ask that we can recommend this for adoption then, please? We can indeed. Thank you very much. Just before I move on to the next item, could I maybe check with New Zealand? You were looking for some text. I'm not sure if you found that or if we just carry on and come back to it.
Thank you, Chair. And the UK and New Zealand have just conferred and come up with a solution that I understand the UK is going to read out. So if I could hand the floor to them, please.
Thank you, New Zealand. United Kingdom then?
Thank you, Chair. Just getting it up. So, to take into account the very sensible comments from New Zealand, we have 14AA as it stands, and then our text was included as another decision, 14BB. But after Conference of Parties, we'd strike the rest of that line and put in instead, as part of the revisions to the national report format under decision 14AA, to tie it back to the process set out above. And we've provided this language to the Secretariat as well.
Thank you, United Kingdom. If you could read that again at dictation speed, we could probably adopt this now rather than revising a document and coming back again. So if you could, please.
Yep. So after Conference of Parties, in the text we provided, to add in, as part of the revisions to the national report format under decision 14AA. And I think that also creates a consequential amendment to the reference to the old 14BB in 14AA, so that would need to be updated to 14CC.
Thank you, United Kingdom, for that. Thank you. Secretariat will just summarise these changes again, and then we'll seek adoption recommendations. So, Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just read slowly the new paragraph, which is 14AA, paragraph B. The Standing Committee is requested to review the reporting requirements under the resolutions adopted by the Conference of the Parties as part of the revisions to the national report format under decision 14.AA.
Thank you, Secretariat. With that small change, could we recommend the document 23 for adoption then, please? Indeed, we can. Thank you very much. Well done. Let me turn then to document CRP 30.2.3, Rev 3 on community participation and livelihoods. I understand that only the English language version of this document is currently on the website. Secretariat may take us through the small changes from versions, and then I'll open the floor for comments. Secretariat?
Thank you, Chair. So Rev 3 on this issue is nearly identical to Rev 2, which has been online for some time. The one change made multiple times in the document is to replace the phrase Indigenous peoples and local communities with just communities. Right? So as an example, the first paragraph, operative paragraph, would read, urges parties and other stakeholders to enhance the participation of communities in the implementation of the convention. So it's broadened the scope of of the resolution. So again, it's the only change made from Rev 2 to Rev 3. And given given the nature of the change, and again, we recognize it's not translated in French and in Spanish, but perhaps given the nature of the change, we're still ready to recommend adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. I'll open the floor for any parties to make a comment first. Yes, Australia, then the United Kingdom, and then Brazil. Australia, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think, as I mentioned earlier, we were uncomfortable with the preambular paragraph 2 that states traditional interactions by Indigenous people and local communities with wildlife can sometimes be harmful to wildlife. We would not support its inclusion in the document because if you sit back and reflect, I think any interactions by any humans with wildlife can be harmful, and I don't think it's appropriate to single out Indigenous peoples and local communities in this context. Thank you.
Thank you, Australia. United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. The UK would like to thank the Secretariat for the revised CRP document provided. However, would like to flag that there are 2 references in Guiding Principles 7 and 9 where text has not been changed back to communities and still refers to Indigenous peoples and local communities. We believe this was agreed last time discussed and have sent these suggested corrections to you already. The UK also supports Australia's comments. Thank you.
Thank you, United Kingdom. Brazil, please.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to highlight that issues that developing countries face are already starting here in the Conference of Parties when it comes to linguistic and language-related issues. For example, when we opt to use this new expression only in English. Now, of course, we're not going to oppose this document, but we just wanted to highlight this. This reflects our difficulties, and particularly in terms of our region when it comes to issues facing developing countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. European Union, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We're glad to see that the comments have been corrected now because that really makes our life a lot easier. We agree with what the UK said on the outstanding Indigenous people references in Key Guiding Principles 7 and 9, which we also would like to replace just by communities, given that in the preamble it is clearly said that in the context of this resolution that communities are considered to encompass the broader community. And by doing so, it includes Indigenous people, so we do support that. We have furthermore also shared the concern that was raised with the paragraph recognizing that traditional interactions by Indigenous people, local communities with wildlife can sometimes be harmful. We don't think that's a very positive message to give, even though it's true, but there's quite a lot of mitigating circumstances sometimes, so we don't think it should be that clear-cut. We also don't think it should be up in the text that much, but we do have some compromise wording to offer, if you allow me. And it would read, recognizing that interactions between communities and wildlife can sometimes be harmful to wildlife. So we don't single out traditional communities, but in general, that human communities can have harmful interactions with wildlife to the wildlife. And then we would also suggest to bring it down in the preambular part to either the last or the one but last paragraph. So if you would like me to read it out once more. So
Please.
Instead of what says now, recognizing the traditional interactions, it would say, recognizing that interactions between communities and wildlife can sometimes be harmful to wildlife. That's a factual statement that we can live with. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. Israel, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I wanted to go back to the specific paragraph that we're speaking about because we were the ones who proposed it in the preamble. And we can certainly agree with the comments by the EU, the UK, and Australia and others who pointed out that this was certainly not intended to, it was not an attack on IPLCs. It was simply to raise the concept that not every single activity that an interaction is positive automatically by Indigenous peoples. We were very cognizant of this issue, and we're not looking to create any conflict on the other way. And the compromise that's now been proposed by the EU seems to cover exactly what we really intended, that recognizing that interactions between communities can sometimes be harmful, which is true in all cases. So it's not singling out IPLCs, it's not singling out any particular interaction. So we would be very, we would prefer if that language by the EU could be included as a compromise, and we withdraw our request earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Israel, for that and for that compromise way forward. I think at this point I'd just like to ask the Secretariat to summarise the changes that we're making here, and then we'll hopefully then go for recommendation for adoption. But Secretariat, just to summarise the changes, please.
Thank you, Chair. First, the second preambular paragraph will now read, or at least it is proposed to read, recognizing that interactions between communities and wildlife can sometimes be harmful to wildlife. As part of that change, it has been proposed to move the paragraph to the second to last paragraph of the preamble. In addition, there are two additional references to Indigenous peoples and local communities that need to be replaced with simply the word communities. So in paragraph 7 of the guiding principles, in the very last line or two lines, it would read, and knowledge exchange between communities. And then similarly in paragraph 9, we're again deleting that phrase, Indigenous peoples and local, so that we now say is important for ensuring that all communities can sustainably benefit from conservation. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Could I go to Australia, please?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the efforts made by the EU at the compromise text, but we are still not comfortable with including that statement in there, even with the broader reference to communities, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I don't think it's really necessary in this resolution to be recognising harmful interactions with migratory species, with communities. Also, that the communities explicitly include Indigenous peoples and local communities in the last preambular paragraph. So again, it is drawing that reference. And I would state that it's not just communities and interactions with wildlife that can be harmful, but it's like all sorts of different activities that any human does with wildlife can be harmful, such as research activities, you know, recreational watching, either in water or boat-based. There's a whole raft of things that can be harmful to wildlife, and I just don't think including it in this resolution adds anything positive, and it's not necessary. So we would prefer to delete the paragraph. Thank you.
Thank you, Australia. Got New Zealand, please.
Thank you, Chair. And Australia's just made many of the comments that I was going to say, so I support Australia's comment. But just to add, I think, you know, in CMS, community involvement is very important, and we want to be encouraging it in a constructive way. And I don't think this particular phrasing, although I know it was meant to be a compromise, I don't think it's very constructive or encouraging, and we would support its deletion. Thank you.
Thank you, New Zealand. Brazil, please.
Gracias.
Thank you, Chair. This document doesn't exist in Spanish, and I just recalled this. But I'd like to join Australia and New Zealand when it comes to removing this paragraph from the document. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. Israel, please.
Thank you, Chair. We still think it has merit to have this pointed out in a preamble. It's not part of the operative parts of the statement, and certainly it just to highlight the issue that when communities do interact, that they should be doing it in a positive manner, as most of the resolutions dictate. But we certainly would be willing to even compromise a little further, as was suggested, and instead of saying communities, just say people. So recognizing interactions between people and wildlife can sometimes be harmful. Would still be a way to keep it in here without highlighting, as Australia just mentioned, that it's anything to do with indigenous peoples or communities, but still keeps it aware that there is sometimes harmful effects. So if that would be acceptable as a compromise, that we see that as a way forward. The word people instead of communities in that line.
Thank you, Israel, for that suggestion. Zimbabwe, please.
Thank you, Chair. We just wish to support the sentiments by Australia. We don't think that the paragraph is adding any value, and we propose that it be deleted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll take one brief comment. Oh, they've gone away. I'll not take a brief comment from the snow leopard people then. I think, first of all, thank you for the comments and suggestions. I will take a very brief comment from the Snow Leopard Conservancy. Thank you.
Yes, dear Chair, thank you for this opportunity. First and foremost, we, the Land of Snow Leopard Network and Snow Leopard Conservancy, express sincere gratitude to the people and government of Uzbekistan for their warm hospitality. We propose a revision to document 30.2.3, revision 3 under the preamble, suggesting the inclusion of the following wording: recognizing the intrinsic spiritual reverence for nature and profound spiritual values inherent in traditional knowledge of lands, natural resources, and the environment held by indigenous peoples and local communities, as well as the vital role these communities can play in effective wildlife conservation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. If I could take us back to the specific issue on the preambular paragraph 2, I do wonder if a little contact group to meet really as soon as possible this evening would be a valuable way forward to see if we can get either recognised text or agreement on the preambular paragraph before we move forward. I'll ask Secretariat just to read the wording that we're working with now, and I'll then put it back to the floor to see if that is acceptable. Other than that, we'll have a contact group on it. So, Secretariat, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the paragraph that is now the second preambular paragraph would read, recognizing that interactions between people and wildlife can sometimes be harmful to wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Could I ask if there are any comments on that revised wording for the second preambular paragraph? Israel, please.
Yes, for the sake of moving things forward, we realize there isn't a strong consensus and we'll withdraw it. Thank you.
Thank you, Israel, for that. It's a very constructive contribution. With that withdrawal and deletion of the second preambular paragraph and the other changes that we outlined earlier, just in terms of the wording, which is a factual change, could I then recommend this for adoption, please? I believe I can. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Just before we move on to anything else, I wonder for the interpreters, if I could clarify if you're okay to continue, ideally up till 7 o'clock, and then we would stop at that stage, if that's acceptable. If you could let me know, please.
Yes, the interpreters can continue.
Much. We're hugely appreciative of your time and your energy. I hope it continues for a while into the weekend. Thank you. Let's turn then to CRP 30.3.1 on infrastructure development and migratory species. This document includes amendments to Resolution 7.2 Rev COP14 and draft decisions. In addition, document 30.3.1 Rev 1 asks us to consider deletion of decisions 13.130 through to 13.134. Could I ask if there are any comments and requests for the floor, please? If there are none, could I then recommend this for adoption, please? And indeed I can. Thank you very much. So then can we move on to CRP 30.3.2 on renewable energy and migratory species? In particular, I wonder if I could ask if the EU and the United Kingdom have had a chance to consult about the draft decision. I think you had comments earlier on 14 capital AA paragraph E, please. While they're consulting, I'll open the floor for any other comment. Oh, the EU are ready. European Union, please.
Yes, thank you, and apologies. We discussed with UK, and it's acceptable for both to use recommends as a stronger term than encourages. So we would like to propose that. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. Are there any other? United Kingdom, please.
So we support that, and we came to agreement on that. Thank you.
Thank you. With that small change to decision 4AA, paragraph E, are we content to recommend this for adoption then? Yeah. I believe we are. So with that, can we recommend for adoption CRP 30.3.2 and take note of the Energy Task Force list of activities included in Annex 1 of the document 30.3.2, and then to delete decisions 13.106 to 13.108, as we had previously covered. And indeed we are. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Secretariat. I was about to move on to CRP 30.4.1 on climate change and migratory species, but it hasn't been on available in all languages for any great time. So I think we will come back to that in the morning. Let me then turn to CRP 30.4.5 on the impact of plastic pollution on aquatic, terrestrial and avian species. It includes draft decisions for our consideration. Also, document 30.4.5 Rev 1 asks us to take note of the executive summary and conclusions of the report, impacts of plastic pollution and on freshwater, aquatic, terrestrial and avian migratory species in Asia and the Pacific region. That's contained in Annex 1 to the document. It also recommends deletion of decisions 13.123 through to 13.1.5. Deletion of decisions 13.123 to 13.125. Could I open the floor for any comments, please? Yes, United Kingdom, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just a minor one. In 14cc, paragraph B, at the end of that line, I think it should refer to paragraph A. It just leaves it hanging otherwise. Also, I didn't think this was a Rev 1 document, but I might be mistaken.
Thank you, United Kingdom. You are, of course, correct. It is a Rev 1. Thank you. European Union, please.
Yes, thank you. Basically I have 2 points. One is more editorial, because there were several points where we had asked to have external resources added, and that was agreed within the working group. So I trust the Secretariat to add that in where we agreed that it would be added in. The other one is more fundamental and goes back to the same issue that we discussed under the strategic plan, which is about the reference to developing countries in 14BB, where the wording now reads, taking into account the specific challenges faced by developing countries, and we will not be able to accept it there. Thank you.
Sorry, European Union, just for clarity, as in the previous one, you cannot accept the wording. Yeah. Yeah, European Union.
Apologies, but in order not to repeat the discussion, maybe it's best to wait until we find a solution for the first one and then see if we can also apply it to this, just in the interest of time and to make everybody's life easier. Thank you.
Thank you, EU. I'm all in favour of that. I think that's a good suggestion that we'll wait for the output from that consultation with Brazil, and I'll now go to Brazil on this issue. Brazil.
Thank you, Chair. Only for the records, Brazil favors keeping this reference. I mean, the reasoning I've already gave might be on the other ones, but we do not want this reference to be stricken from the text. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil, and thank you, European Union. I'm optimistic that we'll be able to find a way forward for both the papers that we are discussing with that issue involved. So if I could encourage you to have that discussion. Let's come back to that paper later, either today or tomorrow. So can we then move on to CRP 30.6 on ecotourism and migratory species. This includes amendments to Resolution 12.23, as well as guidelines on ecotourism that we are invited to endorse. In addition, document 30.6 Rev 1 asks us to consider taking note of the document UNEP CMS COP14 INF 30.6 and deletion of decisions 13.135 and 13.136. Could I open the floor for any comments, please? United Kingdom, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have a minor drafting amendment. On page 2 of the CRP, preambular paragraph 5 beginning, welcoming resolution 11.29 Rev COP12 on sustainable boat-based marine and wildlife watching, we would like to amend the name of the resolution 11.23 from conservation implications of cetacean culture to conservation implications of animal culture and social complexity, which is the correct name of the resolution as listed on the CMS website. Thank you.
Thank you. United Kingdom. With that small correction to the text, can we recommend for adoption? I believe we can. Thank you very much. We turn then to CRP 31.2 on concerted actions. I believe we will have to defer this until the morning. There are one or two issues, I think, in terms of production that we need to come back to. So we'll carry that one forward, if that's okay. 32.1. Sorry. On the thank you, Secretariat. It is actually document 32.1. On the screen, I think it shows as 32.2. But it is actually 32.1 that we will carry forward on concerted actions. Thank you. We've reached the end of the list of CRPs that we thought we would be able to carry through this evening. We thought, however, there are a number of other documents that might be available for our consideration. And the question I have is whether it would be acceptable to go on to look at CRP 29.62 on the Jaguar. We have a revised text available, and I think that has been available for some time on the internet in all the languages. So I'm seeking your guidance as to whether we could move to consider CRP 29.62 on the Jaguar initiative at this point, or whether we should defer that till the morning. I do notice that some of the concerned range states are not in the room, but Brazil and Peru. Brazil, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have more a point of clarification. I understood that the working group on aquatic animals would start this evening at 6:15. I don't know if it's happening, because we had agreed that this session would go until 6 p.m. I just want to emphasize that it's important that the sessions do not occur simultaneously, because I was supposed to be there.
Thank you, Brazil, for that. I think you're encouraging me to delay this issue because I note a number of the key range states are not in the room at the moment as well. And it would be very helpful to have them here to be part of the decision-making process. So I suggest that we take this in the morning when they are actually available to make any comment that they may want to do so. That's been a very productive session. There's still work to do this evening on a few of these documents. We have similarly a number to take tomorrow morning that's already available. I wonder if we can take any notices from the Secretariat, and then we'll conclude Secretariat. Thank you. I believe there are no notices from the Secretariat, but there are a couple of issues from me. You noted under document 15.2 that we need to nominate COP-appointed councillors for aquatic mammals and to replace me and the climate change appointed councillor. I'm wondering if parties have had a chance to communicate to Secretariat about their nominations. If they haven't, what I'd like to recommend is that parties meet in the Saiga room immediately after the Bureau meeting, which will happen now, which will allow a discussion to take place on the COP-appointed councillors. We do need to take that matter forward this evening. So if you do want to be part of that discussion and decision-making process, could you go to the Saiga room immediately when we're finished? We'll have a very short Bureau meeting, and then the chair of the Scientific Council will take over and discuss COP-appointed councillors. So, I think we've had a very productive day. We do have a lot still to do in the morning, so I would encourage you please to look at the documents online and to come prepared to be very focused in our work tomorrow. There are working groups meeting, as we heard from Brazil, so please take part in the working groups. And again, could I thank the interpreters for their patience and for their energy in getting us to this point. Thank you very much for that. We will reconvene at 9:30 sharp tomorrow morning, and please, we will start at 9:30. So if I could encourage you to please be not on time, but early if possible. Thank you all very much indeed for today. Thank you. Well done. Well done.
People start arguing.